I always try and make it a point not to punish people who are on time. So according to my watch, it's time. Let's go ahead and get started. Also, I usually like to roam around a lot. I like to take questions as we go. I'm told I can't leave my cage here or I'll receive an electroshock, so I'll probably not roam very much. I think I can see, if you make a movement or something, I'll be able to see hands. So feel free to ask questions as we go. Let's make this interactive. It's not quite as enjoyable for you or for me if you just listen and I just talk, as much as I love to talk still. So my name is Steve Kahn. I'm here from Redmond. I'm the Exchange Server Marketing team. There we go. There we go. I know it's kind of the post-lunch. You haven't had coffee in the afternoon yet, a little bit of a lull. So yeah, I'm the Exchange Server Marketing team. So the session here is about getting off of older versions of Exchange, Exchange 2007, even Exchange 2010, and making a decision. Do you stay on premises with Exchange 2016, or do you move your mailboxes to the cloud and Exchange Online, Office 365? Since I'm the Exchange Marketing team, I win either way. Right. No, it's not a game. It's just here for information. So why is it that we are here? What are we talking about today? There are, surprisingly, people who are still getting value out of Exchange 2007. Right? It was a pretty darn good product. It took us a while to get it out. If you set your Wayback Machine to 2003, there was a bit of a lag before we got 2007 out the door. But it turned out to be a pretty good, pretty stable product, and it still works. Right? So we have, that's not supposed to happen. There we go. We have a lot of people that report into us to say it still works. Right? It's still, the servers are still running. Email really hasn't changed for about 25 years, right? So why would I make a change? Well, one reason is that in April of this year, Exchange 2007 leaves extended support. What that means is that for the last, it says 4.5 years, actually a little bit longer than that, there have been no new features coming to Exchange 2007. We've done bug fixes and occasional security patch, still doing time zone changes. Amazingly enough, people can't make up their mind what time zone they want to be part of, and they change every now and then. But aside from that, there have not been any new features accruing to Exchange 2007 for a long time. And in April, the well dries up completely. So the engineering team moves on. They no longer look back at 2007. Well, so what? Right? If it still works, why do we care about this stuff? There are some people that think that being in the proper time zone and emailing with the proper time zone is important. Others who think that security fixes and bug fixes are important. Right? But what else? And hey, Microsoft, why aren't you just reaching out and telling everybody? Just go ahead and update. Well, honestly, we don't know who you are. Right? We don't get telemetry from on-premises Exchange that says, you know, this person, I can see the white shirt right here in the middle. This guy in the white shirt, his company's still running Exchange 2007. We don't get that kind of telemetry. The information we do get is when people call us with problems. In the last 6 months, we've been about 60 separate incidents for people calling in with a problem with Exchange 2007. So we know they wouldn't be calling if they didn't already or still have Exchange 2007. We get some third-party metrics from things like MX records. So we know that there is a non-zero population. It's been declining, but there's still a set of people running Exchange 2007. Most of what we'll talk about here today actually applies to Exchange 2010 as well, and that is a higher population of people running 2010. Well, so what else? So you stop doing bug fixes. You haven't done any new feature updates. Let's take a little look back. And this actually was kind of a difficult slide to put together. What did we launch that was new and exciting 10 years ago in Exchange? Well, things like 64-bit hardware. Wow. Yeah, we ran on 32-bit hardware primarily before that. So bigger input-output buffers, bigger support for bigger disks, more efficient disks, that kind of thing. Maybe not the most sexy thing you could do. Support for the Edge server and for auto-discover. Right? Edge was this new server rule that let you put a non-member, non-domain member in your DMZ to take incoming and outgoing mail flow. Right? So you didn't expose a member server in the DMZ. That was kind of a unique thought, and that has carried forward, honestly. Auto-discover, if you remember keying in a long URL, here is my Exchange ActiveSync server name. Right? Even in Outlook on a desktop or a laptop, it wasn't that fun to key in that because you get one character wrong and you're not connecting to your email across the internet. On a mobile device, even more difficult. So auto-discover covers up a lot of sins, right? To let client machines figure out where their Exchange server is and connect up with it. That's a concept, again, that lives on. What else do we do? Resource mailboxes. Before, if you had something like a conference room, you set up a user mailbox, and then you kind of munged around with permissions and ACLs to make it accept meeting requests and that kind of thing. In 2007, we created this concept of a resource mailbox. And again, that lives on today. Another thing, message retention. Very simple, kind of brute force. Keep everything from this date to this date, or keep nothing between those dates. But hey, it was an improvement over the message retention we had before, which was non-existent. What else did we have? A whole bunch of acronyms around continuous replication. So going from the old kind of Windows 2000 active, if you remember the term WOLFPACK, or active passive clustering, we had to have the identical hardware. This was kind of an advance in server-to-server replication or site-to-site replication, et cetera. And we introduced a number of those replication technologies. Right, we also had out of office. Wow. Yeah, that seems just like table stakes, doesn't it? But believe it or not, we've actually worked on all of these features over the last 10 years, and we've introduced some other stuff. So what I did in the next few slides here was just went back and said, what was it that was net new in version X+1 of Exchange versus version X? So what was net new? What were we all excited about with Exchange 2010 when that came out? Well, a bunch of stuff for IT people. Changes to the store, the old JET database, the extensible storage engine, right? And the architecture of mailbox storage to make it much more resilient, much more reliable, reducing IOPS, so it was a more efficient use of disk. This concept of role-based admins, right? So 2007 and before, if you're an Exchange admin, you could create users, you could add servers, you could move database groups. You could actually separate out those concepts. Just for a second, I thought I saw a hand go up there, but I think it was just a scratch. Am I right? Yeah, just a scratch. OA mailbox policies, right? Before, if you wanted to say, specifically for somebody coming to Outlook on the web or Outlook Web Access or Outlook Web App, we keep changing the name on that one. If you wanted to change those policies and permissions, you had to hack IIS a little bit, the virtual directories. We just gave you mailbox policies for Outlook on the web. Being able to control access by device type. So you could say, hey, I only want to have iPhones that are iOS version 6 and above, or Exchange ActiveSync version X and above. You could actually quarantine or deny access or allow access based on mobile device type. Here's a huge one. Support for hybrid to Exchange Online. Right? The concept that you could have an Exchange Online tenant and an on-premises infrastructure, and with hybrid, kind of paste them together so even though they're separate organizations, they act like a single organization for FreeBusy and GAL access and that sort of thing. How many of you went to the hybrid session just prior to this one? Can you get a show of hands? Got a couple folks that went to that. My colleague, Jeff Muleff, black belt. I was teasing him about being a 47-year Microsoft veteran today. Turns out it's only 17 years he's been working on hybrid, so he predates this slide a little bit. Can I ask how many of you are running in hybrid right now? Running Exchange Hybrid? Right? Not a ton. Okay, so I can say anything about hybrid. This is great. No. And then here's a change that we actually rolled in, this last bullet point. We rolled this in from the learnings of what we called BPOS at the time, running Exchange on behalf of customers that became Exchange Online and Office 365, which is changing out kind of SAN and NAS, the various RAID approaches to disk with just a bunch of disks. And this is how we run even today. Off-the-shelf commodity hardware, we just put a bunch of disks per server. If a disk fails, we swap it out and put in new hardware because we're not reliant on the hardware to maintain access to the mailbox. It's those replication technologies I mentioned earlier, right? So there's some pretty cool changes for the IT person in Exchange 2010. We had some stuff for the end user as well, being able to federate, to be able to, let's say you have execs who are supported by Kelly Services administrative assistants, to be able to federate between the admin assistant and the executive for FreeBusy and calendar delegation and send as and that sort of thing. Right. A couple other things here as well, not super important, but you can read the slide later on. Then we look at Exchange 2013, again for the IT pro. So we reduced the server roles. Back in the early days of Exchange, we just had Exchange. It was just everything on one box. In 2000, we introduced this concept of the front end and back end, having the protocols, POP and IMAP and ActiveSync and web, et cetera, being a front-end cluster of servers, and then the mailboxes in the back end. Then I mentioned we introduced the edge server role in 2007, and then we introduced the hub transport, and we were up to 5 roles at one point. In Exchange 2013, we kind of went the other way. Just client access, mailbox server, and edge server. Less complexity, less hardware you have to keep up with, and licenses to pay for, and all that kind of stuff. Speaking of CAS, we removed the need to do session-based affinity. Right? So it's much easier to just have an array of client access servers, array of mailbox servers behind them, and let Exchange handle non-session-based connectivity. Public folder architecture. This is kind of amazing. We had not changed how public folders work since Exchange 4.0. We actually had the 20th anniversary of Exchange 4 in September at the Ignite conference, right? And public folders had not changed from that point in time until Exchange 2013. We changed them to follow the mailbox architecture, which meant all the cool things you can do with a mailbox, like enforcing compliance and e-discovery and those continuous replication technologies, that all accrued to public folders as well. A bunch of other things to make deployment easier here. You note a couple of them here. Instead of having 8 namespaces to manage, just 2. The mailbox namespace and the auto-discover namespace, so a lot easier to deploy and to manage. We changed that. It's either on or it's off hold to a more discrete, a more granular way of doing legal hold. A certain mailbox or a certain database group or a certain time frame. And again, a bunch of enhancements around high availability. All of these in this bucket here, again, came from our own experience running Exchange Online. It's amazing, you put the engineers in charge of running the infrastructure and suddenly they say, wow, this is more difficult than it should be. We should build more resilience so the system itself realizes when something's going south, takes a mailbox store offline, automatically fails over to another continuous cluster representative or replicant, and then fixes itself in the background. We should just automatically recover. This is the point that the engineers started getting the automatic phone calls from the data centers that something is breaking, right? You get the call at 3 a.m., you get very motivated to make it self-healing. And then for the end user, a lot of work around Outlook on the web, right, or Outlook web access. Things like, gee, why don't we modify or recognize that we've got a browser that may not be a PC coming in? It may be a tablet, maybe a smartphone. Let's optimize for these various browser types. So we continue to work on this today. Right? As browsers update, as the base OS updates, whether it's Android, iOS, Windows, what have you, being able to adapt, recognize those types coming in, and then give the best experience on that form factor. Right? Merged view of merged calendars, right? You may have a personal calendar and a business calendar and a shared calendar, working all this kind of stuff together. So again, some good stuff for the end user. And then finally, we reached Exchange 2016. This was October 1st, 2015. It's about a year and a quarter ago that we launched Exchange 2016. We're up to cumulative update 4 now. Every 3 months, like clockwork, a new cumulative update, and the last one was in December. And yes, we reduced server roles even more. Right, the client access server role went away. Again, a learning from Exchange Online. We found out that putting the client access, the protocols, and the mailbox in separate locations, separate servers, across a firewall perhaps, doesn't scale very well. Not nearly as well as putting everything on one box. So you'd end up with cases, you may see this in your own infrastructure, where you've got the mailbox servers are showing not a huge IOPS load, not a huge processor load, plenty of memory, but yet people are saying that their client access is timing out from their device because the CAS array is getting starved or getting overrun. So co-locating the mailbox and the protocols solves that ill. Again, something we learned from Exchange Online. Public folder mailboxes. We had a limit of 100 public folder mailboxes. For most organizations, perfectly fine, but some of our largest and most far-flung organizations, it's not enough. You'd have a branch office that couldn't host its own copy of a public folder mailbox. So the clients in that location would have to go across a WAN link to get public folder content. Right? Again, for most of our organizations, public folders are ancient history, but for those who use them, it's really, really important. So this was a big, big win. Some other stuff here, support for DLP data types, for example, an additional 30 data types, and the number has gone up again. More work on resiliency, finding truncation problems, databases that are not matching up to the logs, that sort of thing. Again, the self-healing, automatic recovery sort of access work. And then for the end user, document collaboration. Are you familiar with this, with document collaboration? You see a show of hands? You know what, why don't we jump out of this quickly and just take a look if I find my Outlook mailbox here. So this is a demo tenant I've got set up on Office 365. If I want to send an email, whoops, yeah, that's supposed to be a test. I want to attach a file. Instead of sending an actual attachment that lives in the body of the message, and it's in my sent items, and it's in Molly's inbox, and having her open that attachment and making changes to it, maybe forwarding it to somebody else, having them make changes. I've got 3 copies. My mailbox storage is bloating. I, the author, am responsible for merging all these changes and things. Instead of that, I send a link. And that's these documents that have a little cloud item on them is the link. It's your clue that this is not actually an attachment. It looks like it. From an end user standpoint, I didn't do anything differently than I have always done. But instead of sending the actual document, Exchange sends a URL with a token to the people on the to line. And that's a location, a document library, or OneDrive for Business, or we now support Box and Dropbox and a number of other consumer services. Token to automatically allow access to the people on the to line. Right? Again, something that we pioneered in Exchange Online and Office 365. This runs in your environment. if you've got Exchange 2016 and SharePoint 2016 and a product we call Office Online Server, used to be Office Web Apps Server, if that name rings a bell, right? So the user hasn't had to do anything different than they're accustomed to, but we've solved that problem of the bloating of the mailboxes and storage. We've solved the problem of versioning because we've got one copy of this being stored in SharePoint or OneDrive or et cetera. All changes are being made to that one document, one source of truth. Right? If we want to run compliance or discovery or hold, we've got one document to deal with and not multiple. Right? Looks pretty simple. Hey, just ask for a token and send a location to a URL. It actually was a lot of engineering work to make that happen. So that's something that we introduced in Exchange Online and we brought to Exchange 2016. You'll want to run, if you're doing this yourself, you want to run Cumulative Update 4, the latest patches for that. But it's a very small change, doesn't impact the user at all, has huge changes for IT, right? And for compliance and discovery and et cetera. I'm picking another one out of here, the REST APIs. So instead of using MAPI to access an item in a mailbox or put an item in a mailbox or take some action on an item, REST APIs, right? Lightweight, simple, reusable. Again, a learning from Exchange Online that we brought down to Exchange 2016. And then for Exchange Online, and this slide is always out of date. Doesn't matter when I update it, it's out of date because every 2 weeks we have a check-in window. I think Ann Michaels in the previous session showed you the Office release roadmap. Every 2 weeks there are new features coming, new changes coming to Exchange Online and the other Office 365 properties. But things like Focused Inbox, right? This is something we brought over from the iOS and the Android Outlook app. It's now available for all the platforms, Outlook 2016, Outlook for the web, Outlook for Universal, et cetera. Zero-day auto purge, time travel, that's my own little parens there. So somebody sends me a link, and Exchange Online Protection takes a look at it and says, yeah, this is a safe link. A week later, the site gets compromised, and that link's no longer safe. Exchange Online will reach back into my mailbox, take that item out, rewrite the link as a safe link because now it's unsafe, rewrite it as safe and stick it back into my mailbox. So going back in time to make safe emails that were delivered in the past. Right? Kind of a cool concept. And the REST APIs. Delve and Delve Analytics. I think we have a number of sessions here on Delve and the kind of the fitness tracker for your business, for your personal business life. Some social signals like app mentions and likes, et cetera. So a number of things that you've seen have happened since we launched Exchange 2007. I showed you that modern attachments already, document collaboration. Right? I can also show you another example. Again, this is an Exchange Online sort of thing, which is the group, right? The Office 365 group. From an email standpoint, from how it appears to people who are doing email and calendar, it's kind of like a distribution list, except the distribution list, right? If you were not a member of the DL yesterday, you don't see anything that happened in that DL. Right? Today you join up, you get new email sent to you. Email comes in, gets exploded out to all the mailboxes for everybody in there, right? But you didn't see what happened before that. A group is a single shared mailbox. So it's a searchable historical archive of everything that's happened with a set of people. It's just email. And it's a shared calendar as well, right? So it's not one person who has a calendar and then everybody else has access. It's literally shared for everybody who's in the group. Pardon? Contacts, so you can add guests as a member of the group.
So if you have a sales team and you might have contacts for a region that you can share between the sales team.
Yeah, so the question was, is this kind of you've got a sales team, You want to have all the customer contacts you've collected together. Groups doesn't actually solve that problem. That's just more of an Active Directory thing, right? It's a mail contact item, for example, and it can be enabled for a group, certainly, but it doesn't live within group. It's just an Active Directory concept. But here's kind of the trick, too. The end user can make all this happen. So if you're the Exchange person, then normally you get a request, can you please make me a DL, and then make me a shared calendar, and then make me the owner of both of those so I can manage and monitor them. Instead, I'm the end user here. I'm just Sarah Davis. I'm a standard user. I can create my own group. When I click on OK there, I'm sending a request to Azure Active Directory to create me a group and make me the owner of that group. There's my group. If I want to add people ahead of time, add people ahead of time. Now Molly has access to my group as well. I haven't had to send in a request or contact IT or help desk or anything. I've just done this on my own. Right? Now Azure Active Directory is saying, oh wait, we got a group, we have to have a shared mailbox. So it's creating the shared mailbox in Exchange Online on my behalf. I didn't have to contact somebody to ask that to happen. Right, that's working away here. There's the same kind of idea from Outlook on the web. Right, so I can take a look at my groups. You can see my Test 13 group already is in existence here. Test 13 group is ready. I'll back over. There it says, there we go. Still setting it up, but it's actually already set up. There's Test 13. So great, I've got this location, and I, as an end user, could set up the shared mailbox and set up the shared calendar. Super. And this is where Steve Jobs would say, oh, wait, there's one more thing, right? Wait, oh, yeah, it's not just the calendar and the shared mailbox. It's also Files, which is OneDrive for Business or SharePoint document library. I didn't have to put in a request with a SharePoint person to create a document library. Exchange just sent a token over to SharePoint and said, please create a document library and give these following people as members access to this document library. Right? And away we go. Somebody's clearly enjoying this session. And I can get to it from Outlook on the web here as well. So I go to Files. There's also shared OneNote Notebook. Right? I didn't have to ask IT to do it. It's just set up for me here on my behalf. And again, members of the group automatically have access to this. Here's kind of a cool thing, connectors. This is using the Graph API. And we've published a number of these. You can write your own as well, just a REST or a graph-based API. If you already have data that exists somewhere else, you can create a two-way connector between this group and that data source. So for example, if your group is using Trello to manage tasks, right? We have a similar tool called Office Planner. If you've already got a Trello board, you can just integrate with the Trello board. Or if you've got a group of developers and they're using GitHub, right? Create a GitHub connector.
What about on-base?
Like on-premises?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the question is, what about on-premises? Great question. Office 365 Groups is an Exchange Online Office 365 construct because it's an Azure Active Directory construct. And all this automatic provisioning stuff, right? We can't reach into your infrastructure and create the SharePoint document library. Right? We don't have permissions or visibility to do that. So this is all living Exchange Online. There is some interaction if you're an on-premises mailbox user and you're in a hybrid situation and other people are in an Office 365 group. At the base level of just email, it's an SMTP mailbox, right? So items that are going to and from the group can exist in your mailbox as well as an on-premises user. right? You can have access to the SharePoint Online document library. It's not as slick and smooth as integrated as if your account is there. You can't create new because you don't have the ability to create an Azure Active Directory item, but somebody whose mailbox is there can do it on your behalf. So yeah, there's limited functionality now for on-premises. We're working to expand that for, again, kind of not the management and monitoring and stuff because that requires the online capabilities, but for the general interaction with the group. And then kind of to further your point, if you have somebody who's outside of your organization, they're a vendor, they're a contractor, they're a customer, they're a partner, you can add them as a guest. Let me get rid of my connectors here. So let's see, I did it from, created that from Outlook, didn't I? So I can add a member. I'll choose one of our closest friends here for email. Right? So anybody who has an email address, I can add that person as a guest. And behind the scenes, Azure Active Directory is going to create a Microsoft account, and it's going to map it to this, in this case, Gmail account. This person is going to get an invitation to join the group. When they do, they're a fully functioning member of the group. Right? They have access to the shared calendar, shared mailbox, shared OneNote, shared file store, et cetera. They're a fully functioning member even though they don't exist in your Active Directory. So the question of, can that be controlled? Yes, you can disable guest access at the tenant level or more granularly underneath that in specific groups, et cetera. But by default, it's enabled, and it's a global switch to say disable this. In fact, you can disable the creation of groups, period. If your process says we have IT governance around creating new DLs and creating new SharePoint sites, et cetera, you can disable groups across the board. We think by default, this is an enabling tool for people to collaborate, so most of our customers are going to say, yeah, it's a good thing to let users figure out who they're working with and create these resources for themselves, but you can turn that off. You can turn guest off for governance. Yeah, you can. So the question was, can you enable it for certain groups? Yes, it is. So there is a level of granularity. There's the kind of the top level on-off, and then there's granularity within. Oh, I want to let our CEO or certain Active Directory group have the ability to add guests and others not. Absolutely.
Is this mail enabled?
That guest account I was just creating?
Not the guest account, but can I email outside the organization? Can I email to the customer team?
Great. Yeah, so the question was, is this mail enabled? Absolutely it is. So the group itself is test13 at, my tenant is mod629312.onmicrosoft.com. Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Yeah. It is a mail-enabled mailbox, right? All it is at the base is a user mailbox that's got some specialty properties glued on top of it. The ability to automatically add and remove people out of there, for example. So as a mail object, you can do things like legal hold or discovery, compliance, that sort of thing. As a user mailbox type that's just got these special properties. We have given the ability to do things like send as or send on behalf of, right? Normally, if you're in a group, you're collaborating with people, you're individuals working together. So you'd want to see, oh, Steve Kahn sent an email saying, I've just finished uploading the specs. You can, move forward. Sometimes, though, you want to have that distribution list kind of capability that's, hey, the group itself, test13 says, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow. It's a Skype for Business link, and we're going to have an on-premises live meeting room as well, right? Or send on behalf of. Absolutely. Great questions. So that's kind of an example of how we think about how things have changed since Exchange 2007, right? Yes, at the base level, all this stuff is just email, and there's the SharePoint component and the OneNote component and and connectors and Office Graph and things. At the base level, it's just email, but it's user self-service email. It's being able to collaborate and solve some of the problems we've lived with forever with like the multiple attachments and multiple versions and that sort of thing. With this group as well, I can have any number of groups that I'm a member of, that I'm subscribed to. I can search for groups. Then let me switch back over my mailbox here. All right, so I could create a new group from the UI here as well. If I want to search for groups, I can do so. And where this might come in handy is I want to see if somebody else is already thinking about this in my organization. Has somebody else already created a group, or do I need to create one from scratch? Right? Speaking of governance, I actually had a thought here. I'm going to interrupt myself. And create a new, YTest 14. So by default, we think most organizations would like this information to be discoverable. If you work for, let's say, Boeing, you're a member of the Boeing family, you've got a Boeing account, a Boeing mailbox, et cetera, you should be able to search across the Boeing tenant, the Boeing infrastructure, and look for information on best practices for commercial airline manufacturing, or company football team, or tickets to Soldier Field, whatever the case may be. But you can also set that group to private. And if it's private, it does not appear in search results. People can't just self-service add themselves. As the member or the owner of this group, I have to explicitly add people or take people out. Right? So by default, you can set this to say, I want the default to be private, not public. You can also use policy to say, well, hey, our default is public. Anybody can discover this kind of information. They can discover if a group exists, and they can join the group if they want to. But if the information contained in this group is medium or high business impact, if you're using those templates to stamp priority and importance onto documents and such, then if you have a public group and people start putting high business impact items in the group, it will automatically switch itself to become a private group. So relatively recent change that we rolled in. Actually had a corporate VP who created a group, public group. Our groups are all public at Microsoft by default. And it kept switching on him to be private. And he was getting a little perturbed. Why is this happening? I want everybody to discover my group. I dug around and said, hey, I just joined your group. It looks like you have some documents that are stamped as high business impact in the SharePoint site. All of a sudden, the problem went away. Yeah, the group should be private. You're right. So we've talked about some of the improvements for the IT pro and improvements for the end user, reasons why, if you're running on an email infrastructure, it just keeps working, why you still might want to upgrade. I mentioned time zone and security. Compatibility with devices and apps. This is a key one. Outlook 2016, for example, has a block to not connect to Exchange 2007. We didn't do that to make you upgrade your Exchange infrastructure, although that would be really clever of us. We weren't quite that smart. It was because of the change from the RPC over HTTP protocol to the MAPI over HTTP protocol. We're retiring the older RPC over HTTP protocol. We don't want to continue supporting that. It's not as robust, it's not as secure, it's not as reliable. The MAPI over HTTP is a much friendlier, much less chatty, much more resilient to transient network conditions. So rather than let you get into a state where you had a new client app connecting to an old server infrastructure that didn't work very well, we just put in a block there. Also, modern web browsers. We haven't updated the web browser support on Exchange 2007 for that last 4.5 years. And for Exchange 2010, 2015 was the last update. And every time Apple releases a new iOS, anytime Android goes from one dessert to another dessert, the browsers change and compatibility gets a little bit worse. So another reason to stay more current. That last bullet point, the hardware won't run forever. We actually engineer pretty close to the metal on Exchange. The servers you initially installed Exchange 2007 or Exchange 2010 on, that hardware doesn't exist anymore. You can probably find it on eBay, right, or some PC recycle kind of sites, but you can't go out and order the old Dell rack mount hardware that you used to order 5 to 10 years ago. And Exchange 2007 gets less and less comfortable running on newer and newer hardware. So if you're going to run your own hardware, you're going to continue on premises, updating to a more recent version will really help you in terms of support and in terms of performance. So now for the next little bit here, we've got a couple of things I'm going to go by. Reasons why you might want to move to Exchange Online and Office 365, and we'll kind of walk through those. And then reasons why you might want to stay on premises but go to Exchange 2016. Right? So my colleague actually gave me a suggestion on rewording this one, and I loved the way he said it. I was like, he's a British guy, so I'm going to do my best British accent. Steve, if they're still running Exchange 2007, they've got a lot bigger problems and things to focus on than their email. Okay, that wasn't very good, but I figure as long as I'm better than Dick Van Dyke, I'm something. So yeah, exactly. Your business may not be IT, right? If your business is not IT, if you make screen doors or you sell travel packages or you're an insurance company, then managing your own IT may not be the best use of your resources. Right? Just something to think about. If you go to Exchange Online, you have one move, and then you never have to worry about updating hardware, updating software, patches, changes to server roles, all that kind of stuff. It's all immaterial. Right? You manage a monitor using the online tools. Your users connect up and get email and all that fun stuff, but you never have to worry about updating again. I thought it would also be useful to talk about a couple things, a couple reasons why when we talk to customers who say, hey, I can't move to Office 365, some of the things they bring up. And this isn't a laundry list, but just some of the most commonly brought up ones. Hey, Microsoft, you take your Office online technology, your Exchange online technology, and you bring it down to on-premises, right? So why wouldn't I just wait for you to bring the advancements down to on-premises? Yep. Yeah. And if you want to stay on-prem, you say, hey, I've already got everything I need. As long as the email's up and running, my users don't complain. Seems to me it ought to be cheaper if I have a point solution around email versus this kind of suite-wide experience. It ought to be cheaper. I'm only paying for what I use. And I've been running Exchange for a long time. And it hasn't let me down. How about rarely? It's rarely let me down. And it'll still be running when I'm gone. Oop, there it goes again. Come on. Oops. So the alternative viewpoint is that Office 365, you're right, it's a lot more than email. And for a monthly subscription price, it gives you a ton more than most businesses will pay for and budget for. So you don't have to make the hard choices. Do we want to enable people to have their own SharePoint sites? Do we want to launch this new Sway capability? Do we want to launch Microsoft Teams or Microsoft Planner? Right? You don't have to worry about it. It's included in the subscription. You don't have to have this giant budget outlay. And yes, much of the technology transfers from online to on-premises, but not everything. There are some things, Office Groups, for example, we were discussing earlier, that we can't replicate that self-service capability in on-premises. So there are some things that do run only in the cloud that can't run on-premises. There's also some great things like Delve Analytics that'll look across all of your information, surface information to you that you may not know exists that run online and not on premises. Another thing we hear is, oh my God, you give us 50 gigabyte mailboxes. By the way, we're rolling out for the higher end subscriptions 100 gigabyte mailboxes by default. Right? How am I ever going to keep people to keep their mailboxes trimmed down? Right? I just encourage people to pack rat if I give them big mailboxes. And storage is cheap. If I want to give people big mailboxes on premises, I can give people big mailboxes. Right? Very valid, very true statement. Large mailboxes can be bad, right? If we get subpoenaed and we have to do discovery, the less email people have, the better, right? That's the way the argument goes. Less data to worry about, less worries about compliance. We've already got something. We'll just kind of keep pushing forward with that. And we have to maintain backups for X number of years. And Microsoft, you guys don't do backups in Exchange Online. Very true. Probably the biggest argument against that is the venerable PST, right? Now, I know none of you have any PSTs in your organization, right? At least none that you talk about in public, right? What happens when the person who filled the role, the marketing manager, for example, leaves, their machine gets retired or stolen or blown up or rolls off lease? Right? All that information that was in the PST is lost. It can't be used. It's not part of the corporate legacy anymore. Okay? If you ingest the data in Office 365, then you figure out what you want to do with it. Right? Maybe you say, we're going to archive after a certain number of years, or we're going to automatically delete after a certain number of years, but it's all the data. Right? Users haven't had to squirrel things away in PSTs because you give them a huge storage space to work with. So, great. Couple of thoughts about why you might not want to move or be reticent about moving, and then some arguments to and from for either one. So how do you do it? Well, several different options here. Cutover migration. This is if you're a smaller shop and you just say, okay, Friday, when you leave, don't connect your email. We're going to be offline for the weekend. When you come back in, you're going to have a new cloud-based mailbox. Right? And that's pretty much it. You can let the users upload their own stuff from Outlook between mailboxes. Generally, it's something you want to do IT-based. But again, this is a very small organization that would do cutover. Staged is the, hey, I'm going to take the executive suite and their admin assistants. You always want to move people who are connected at the same time. And we're just going to move, start out with a couple of mailboxes, make the move, see what happens, start out with a couple more. In the background, when you set up hybrid and you move that first mailbox, the mailbox replication service takes everything that's on premises and copies it to a new Exchange Online mailbox. Does it compare to make sure both of them are identical? When the online one is completely identical to the on-premises one, then in Active Directory, we just switch the location where the mailbox is stored. So the next time the user connects up with AutoDiscover, it says, oh, your mailbox is here in the cloud. Right? User doesn't see any difference. They just start up Outlook and away they go. And then the mailbox on-premises automatically deprecates itself. Right? Staged makes much more sense for most organizations. It lets you move over time. It lets you test. It lets you see if you have any tools that you've been running on premises that they've been so old you've forgotten about them, and oh yeah, we need to now point those to the cloud, et cetera. And you can run in that way in this hybrid mode forever. If you talk to some of my colleagues, they would say hybrid is a way to get you from on-premises to online, and it's a temporary solution. Some of our organizations have been running in hybrid for years and plan to continue running in hybrid for years. Right? Maybe there's a compliance reason. You've got people in a certain location and the data has to stay within the bounds of that geographic location. Right? Or you've got a policy that says executive mailboxes will always be run on premises, whatever the case may be. Start the move some mailboxes, see how it goes. See if over time you can move all of the mailboxes. There's no policy or business need to do it anymore. But as long as there is, stay in hybrid. It's fine. There's a partner set of tools or third parties. There's a PST ingestion, Office 365 data ingestion service. I've got a link here so that you can take a look at these various solutions. The Office Fast Track Center, actually, if you have more than 50 seats, the Fast Track Center will give you guidance and give you some tools and best practices for moving to Exchange Online. If you have 150 seats or over, they will actually do the move for you. So something to keep in mind. And here I've already talked through the cutover versus staged. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you're going to Exchange Online, I mentioned that hybrid support came in Exchange 2010 SP1 to be precise. So you have to have at least 2010 in your organization to set up that hybrid connectivity. You don't have to retire 2007 first. 2010, you can even do 2013. All three of those can coexist. Set up the hybrid connector, get the mail flow flowing back and forth between the two, and then move at your own pace. And here's a little flow chart. I'm not going to walk through this. I'm sure you're all excellent readers, and this is far away for some of you. But again, this is in a slide deck. You can take a look at this. Kind of a step-by-step checklist. Cutover and staged. How you can approach going through. We actually have an online tool, a deployment wizard, the Exchange Deployment Wizard. It's a TechNet link. That's an online tool that kind of does this for you. You input a series of answers to questions it'll ask you, and it'll create this flowchart for you. For most of our customers, this kind of static representation is exactly how they can move forward. Hybrid, again, there was a session on it here. If you didn't go, I'd highly recommend viewing it on demand later on. Great set of information about running the hybrid wizard, and it is simply a wizard that you run to connect your on-premises Exchange and an Office 365 tenant and make them look like one. Right? So free busy information, global address list lookup, that kind of stuff all just works. Again, for hybrid, as I mentioned, you have to have 2010 or 2013. Right? So if you have 2007, you have to at least add 2010. I didn't mention 2016 in that deck as the question, or that slide, and why. 2016 does not interoperate with 2007. And I'm going to actually cover that in the on-premises version, but kind of that great question, kind of keep that in the back of your mind. I've also got a couple links here. I mentioned that there were third-party tools. There's actually a marketplace for partners and apps to help with the process. This is especially useful if you have public folders. The Fast Track Center doesn't do public folders, but we've got partners, some great partners, Binary Tree and NetMail and a number of others that have moved tens of millions of mailboxes. So a couple of links there for you to take a look as well. And then the import service, I mentioned this. You can drive ship. Right? You can literally copy your Exchange databases onto hard drives and ship them to us, and we'll put them in the ingestion service for you. Or you can copy over the network. It's the same thing, it just skips the UPS step there in the middle. Fast Track, I mentioned, 50 seats or more, you get guidance, you get some templates, you get some best practices. 150 seats or more, we literally have engineers who are sitting behind desks. You say, hey, I want your help, I've got 159 seats. They'll call you up, set up an appointment, get the information they need for your on-premises and your tenant, and start the process for you. And again, there's a link there for more information on Fast Track. I mentioned public folders. You can move public folders to the cloud. That 100 to 1,000 public folder mailbox increase happened first in Exchange Online. So we do want your public folders. We will take your public folders. The Fast Track Center doesn't do public folder work. Tends to be a little bit more complex. It says partners might. Partners actually do. Again, NetMail, Binary Tree, a number of partners who have great experience with moving public folders. Again, my British colleague, and I won't do the British accent this time, I'll save you that. But he said, you know what? If you're thinking about moving them, is this time to look through and say, when was the last time anyone touched public folder X and public folder Y, and maybe just get rid of them. You can archive them and keep them around just in case. We actually did that at Microsoft. We did away with public folders internally. We were a huge user of public folders. We did away with them internally, and Microsoft IT, very creative and very simple approach. They posted an email in public folder after public folder and said, if you read this, it means you're using this public folder, reply to it. And then they just did a walkthrough. When was the last access to date for all these different public folders? And they took out, of course, the date that they put the message in, and it was a vanishingly small number of public folders that anybody actually even noticed. For the few that were, they gave them a little help on moving the documents to SharePoint and never looked back.
If one is actively using public folders as part of day-to-day operations, is SharePoint really the best thing to replace those?
So the question was, if you're actively using public folders, and it's a small number, but the number of customers we have who are actively using public folders, they're vital to their business. They're doing workflow and business process and things. SharePoint is great for workflow, business process, those sort of things. It's not just drag and drop. It'd be great if it were. It's not, to be honest. So you do need to do some planning, probably some development work to replicate what you had in public folders. If it's just storing a bunch of content to let people discover it with an Outlook search, that can stay in public folders if you'd like.
We use it primarily for customers or outside organizations to email that has to be active on that email. So
Okay.
all members of the group know, hey, somebody's already taken care of this. Like,
Sure.
things like that. That's really what we use public folders for primarily.
Yeah, again, I'll just repeat the comment for the camera. So the comment here from the audience was, using public folders, if there's a group of people that need to take action on customer service or sales or support or something, somebody emails an email address that's a public folder, and then if employee number 1 takes action on it, he or she replies, and then everybody else sees, oh, I don't need to deal with this one, it's already being taken care of. Right? Perfectly valid use case, and that use case can go to Exchange Online. There's no reason why it couldn't. Public folders are just as workable in hybrid as user mailboxes. It might be an interesting experiment once you've moved some people to Exchange Online to try to do the same thing with an Office 365 group.
That was what I was thinking when you mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, so that's a great analog, and it gives you all that same capability, a single location that everybody has access to and everybody can see what happened, with all the other cool stuff like a planner associated. If you need to assign a task to somebody, you can do that with a planner because the group also exists in Planner, right, for example. The one bullet point here too, you might want to keep one last Exchange box on premises if you have something like printers and scanners that email the data to a person's mailbox, SMTP-enabled applications like that. It's nice to have an on-premises box to handle that so you don't have to set up routing. A lot of times these older machines have no concept of a cloud, so having a local Exchange server to deal with that makes sense. So things to think about. If the client apps are updated, I mentioned Auto Discover, it's just magic. Things just work. You can move mailboxes back and forth. Most of your users probably don't know where their mailboxes are anyway. As a matter of fact, they may think, well, I've got Outlook. That's my email, right? Did you know there's a server behind it? Oh, it must be Outlook server. Right, that one always kills me. But yeah, they don't have any idea. You can move their mailbox up and down all day long. The only possible way that they would know that their mail has been moved is if their mailbox is on premises. Oops, I was creating this group, wasn't I? If their mailbox is on premises, then this groups item here on the left nav disappears because you can't have a group on premises. It's an Azure Active Directory construct. So rather than have it there and make it unavailable or grayed out or something, we just make it vanish. So that would be the key. If somebody's mailbox moves to Exchange Online and say, hey, I just got something new over here. Right? Other than that, you can move mailboxes back and forth all day long, and there's no impact to the user. Auto Discover will handle getting Outlook to the appropriate server. Whoops. One more thing here, because I hear this one on a fairly regular basis, and I totally understand it. Hey, if I move the Exchange servers and move from our on-premises to the cloud, and that's been my job, is I'm the Exchange guy for our organization, didn't I just work myself out of a job? Right? And the answer is no. It'd be magic if everything just worked on its own. You are still needed. You are the administrator. You're administering the service, right? You're not replacing hardware. You're not doing patches. You're creating users. You're applying policy. You're doing monitoring and management, probably a little bit, honestly, higher value things for your organization. So you're still needed. we don't get away from administrators and IT folks in Exchange Online. We just take their job from server maintenance and a bunch of other stuff to a bunch of other stuff. Okay, so now the Exchange 2016 question. So if you're pure Exchange 2007, you can't install 2016. Setup will actually fail, and it'll tell you you have Exchange 2007 here. So you need to retire Exchange 2007 first. Now, you can use the downgrade rights from Exchange 2016 and install 2010 or 2013. The key is just moving the mailboxes off of Exchange 2007. As soon as that last server is retired, then you can install 2016. And 2016 can coexist with 2013 and 2010. Right? And install a single 2016 box. Admin interface is going to look very familiar to you. Most of the services and capabilities are going to look very familiar to you. You start moving mailboxes to that new server, and your users are going to start seeing some new things happen, some new features and things that they didn't have before. Certificates is a big thing that catches people up. Just making sure that you copy and export the certificates and then import them onto the new server. Because remember, 2016, client access and mailboxes exist on the same server. So the cert that you used to authenticate HTTP or Exchange ActiveSync, et cetera, needs to be on that new box. When the user connects in, they're automatically going to be redirected to the most newest version of Exchange by default, and then they'll be proxied wherever their mailbox is. So they connect up, AutoDiscover is going to find the 2016 box and then say, okay, where is my mailbox for user X? And Exchange 2016 is going to proxy them to the right server, right? And again, just like moving to the cloud, you can take your time. You can install box by box, move mailbox by mailbox, right? You don't have to do everything in a specific period of time. If you've got some app, some third-party app that relies on an older version of MAPI and you need to leave some 2010 in your organization, you can do it. It's not a problem. The users who are on 2016 are going to see the best experience and enjoy it more, but the 2010 box can exist as long as you need it to there. Well, until 2020, when support for that product goes away. Move everything else first, then move the public folders. Right, again, remember there's an architecture change in public folders from 2007 or 2010 to 2016. So public folder moves are last. Okay. So you've gotten to 2013, you've retired your 2007 boxes, move to 2016. Or you can move to 2010, as I mentioned. Retire 2007 and move on. You don't have to worry about front end, back end. Remember, we handle affinity or lack of affinity, lack of session-based needs between front end and back end now. So if you've got an old 2010 CAS array, we'll handle proxying to the 2016 server and figure that out for you. Okay, again, if the clients are updated, then things like auto-discovery just work. You don't have to recreate profiles or have people delete profiles and create a new one. It just works. I've got some links here, general guidance on deploying 2016. The deployment assistant, this is the thing I talked about earlier. that is a wizard that'll walk you through a question and answer session, and then it'll paint you a checklist for your particular situation. That link is live there as well. Sizing guidance, in general, think out, not up. Sometimes we're ordering new hardware and, wow, I've got to get, how many processors can I possibly get? How many cores in each processor? How much RAM can I possibly load in? Know that at Exchange Online, we use commodity hardware. We actually started building our own hardware, just commodity stuff, and it's not exotic at all. Right? 6 processor machines have been the default. We're going to 8 processor machines, 64 to 96 gigs of RAM, just a bunch of disks. Exchange will handle all the failover, all the resiliency for you. So think more smaller servers, not fewer bigger servers. And again, the sizing guidance will help there. Preferred architecture. We had a session at Ignite. The Ignite sessions are all publicly available, right? If you go to ignite.microsoft.com, there was a session on the Exchange 2016 preferred architecture. We had Mike Cooper, a gentleman from General Motors, talk about how they followed the preferred architecture. I can't tell you an exact number of mailboxes, but they are our biggest on-premises customer with a really impressive number of mailboxes. They followed the preferred architecture, and it's just been a great experience for them. So the end here, whether you want to stay on premises or you want to move to the cloud, or you want to do a little of both and be in hybrid, it's absolutely your choice. We will support whichever one you want to do. Just get the older Exchange out of your organization before April. Right? If you want to think a little bit ahead, you can think, well, gee, in 3 more years, 2010 is going to go end of life. Maybe I should get rid of that as well. But whichever one you're supported, we are currently planning Exchange 2019. So there will be another version of on-premises Exchange. As long as people need it, we'll continue building it. If we get to next year and nobody wants on-premises Exchange anymore, then we'll probably kill the product. But until that point, if you need it, we'll build it. But kind of last point, if you're on 2007 because it just isn't an important thing for you, email just works, and it's not important enough to throw budget and people at migrating or updating, just go to Exchange Online and let us run it for you. With that, we've got a few minutes left for questions. I want to really thank you for attending today. I'll remind you that the Ask the Experts is at 6 o'clock tonight. I'll be around, and all my colleagues as well. Fill out the evals, please. If you want to come up and ask questions, we've got about 7 more minutes. I'm happy to take questions up here. If not, thank you very much.